מאמין, אוי אני מאמין, באמונו של אמו.
Very well.
Okay.
Take a look what he writes. Take a look. Why?
Dear Rabbi, thank you.
No. Where are the three dots? Take a look.
Thank you so much for sending me a copy of the Louis Farrakhan speech.
Well, you know what that means? Every curse word in the world.
Oh my goodness. Well, I've seen Louis Farrakhan speak. Very nice. Wow. Of course, there's pictures with all sorts of dignitaries, etc.
And then there's a picture. It's, Simon has also letter. I can show you. No. See here. This was Frank Sinatra's, Frank Sinatra's phone book. This is someone copied it.
Someone got it and copied it. And that's Simon Wiesenthal there, the Simon Wiesenthal Institute, Rabbi Hier, etc.
So he was very. And then here's a picture of Simon Wiesenthal, who was a Batavian. And here, Simon Wiesenthal. And then there's the last picture. This is the last picture, Mamish, a few weeks before he was lifted.
None of these Oscars are for the life and legacy, yeah? Not for this one.
These are the two Academy Awards. The Genocide was the first film that ever won the Academy Award on the Holocaust. And this was The
Long Way Home.
This Genocide
was The Long Way Home.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
And I'll show you.
One second.
Yeah.
1 second. I want to see what you. So you look at the Academy Awards. He looked at the map. What's the menorah?
The menorah was given on the Salute to Israel at 50. This was when I gave the invocation to the president. The president.
Right. That was just recently.
Yeah.
Of course.
And that's
very nice.
And here I have also, I have from Rabbi Yaakov Sassel. These were the Rabbeim in Yaakov Yosef where I went to. All my Rabbeim.
Very nice. So these are all accolades that you got. Tell me something in this office that inspires you.
What?
Tell me something in this office that inspires you. You got the map.
Torah.
You don't need any more than that.
Torah is the best destroyer.
You would be making Simon proud. That's what he wanted. He wanted the Torah should be the continuation. Thank you so much.
No.
So welcome to the evening of I Have Never Forgotten You. Tonight we will be privileged to watch a film on the life and legacy of Simon Wiesenthal. And the original plan was that Rabbi Marvin Hier would be with us in person, but Baruch Hashem, due to a simcha, and it should always be for simchatic occasions, Rabbi Hier cannot join us in person, and so we're recording this in advance as some welcoming remarks before we play the film. Rabbi Hier, as I'm sure most of you know, is the founder and dean of the Simon Wiesenthal Center, as well as the Museum of Tolerance. And he is also the founder and director of the Moriah film division of the Simon Wiesenthal Center. Rabbi Hier, it's a pleasure to sit with you in person, and I thank you for making the time to do this, despite all of the busy things on a personal level and a professional level. So thank you very much for your time. If I can open just by asking you, how did you get to, if it's not a chutzpah question, how did you get to know Simon Wiesenthal?
It's a very good question. It's sort of an odd answer, but this is exactly what happened. When I came to Los Angeles, 1977, so with the idea, we started the yeshiva post-high school, and I took my children to the Tar Pits. And the Tar Pits, that's a place, a famous place here in Los Angeles, that has the footprint of the ancient dinosaurs. And while we were there, a young girl asked the guide the following question: can the dinosaurs come back? And the guide answered, it's impossible because of climate change. So after the tour was over, we were walking home, my wife, myself, 2 children. And I said to my wife, I asked her the following question: I wonder what the guide would have said if I reversed the question, can Hitler come back? Would we be able to say because of climate change or because of attitudes that have changed in mankind, he can't come back? And I said the obvious answer is it's not true. He can come back. And yet I said, isn't it strange? I'm thinking about it. In the United States of America, the country that the whole world depends upon, there is at that time, this is 1977, not a single place that gives the warning as to what happened by having, just like they have the tar pits, and they're showing you what once happened with dinosaurs. Why don't we have a place to show what happened once with a human dinosaur?
Was Yad Vashem already in existence?
No, Yad Vashem was existence
So it
in the
was
state of Israel.
Only in Israel.
But the strongest country in the world, the United
had nothing
States,
to show for
had
it.
nothing to show. Here we were in 1977. The United States Holocaust Memorial Council opened in 1979. So I began thinking about that. We had a big building across the street, and we could certainly have done it. I said, now what should we do? Name it for a person who will give the money?
So the idea for the Simon Wiesenthal Center was around before you had even met?
No, there was no idea. That was the first time.
Okay.
And so basically what I said to myself is, we have a big building. What should we do? We could open a center on the Holocaust where the wealthy person who gives the name will have the name on that.
Which is what's usually done, traditionally.
I said to myself, but that wouldn't, is there someone that the entire world would be masculine, would agree, I should have his name on that building? And I said to myself, when I was a rabbi in Vancouver, I took a group, and all we did, we saw him for less than 5 minutes. He came out in Vienna, we went, and he gave Shalom Aleichem to everybody in the group.
Wow.
That was the only time I had come. I said, you know what, it's worth a try. So I called him up and told him on the phone what we would like to do. And I'd like to come see him in Vienna. He was reluctant. He said, well, how do I know who's going to do it? He says, the survivors, they don't want to talk about it. They don't want their children to know what happened, how horrible it was. I said, Simon, but I want to come with, I'm going to bring someone from the younger generation. I brought Roland Darnell, who was then in his 30s,
Okay.
mid-30s. So he agreed to the meeting, came to Vienna, explained him the idea. And he said, on one condition, don't just put up the pictures. Be an activist. Make an organization that fights against hate and anti-Semitism. Not just to show on the wall, this is what happened. Because if you say, show what, this is what happened, he said, it's like putting things in a refrigerator. If you need it, you could open it, but
It's a museum, it sits on a shelf.
Let it be at. Okay, so we agreed to that request. And there was born the Simon Wiesenthal Center. But, and I'll tell you this is an absolutely true story.
Okay.
The Jews that we approached, we didn't want to do it.
We're not
Why
excited
do we
about
want to bring up this horror? Why do we want to bring up the...
Let's bury it under the rug.
We're this is America, and why do you want
We're past
to...
it.
Right,
Over it.
right. So, we opened, of course the yeshiva was open, and we were working, can we pull this off? And to make a long story short, we put it in the B'nai B'rith Messenger, which is a Jewish newspaper at that time. And I got a call from a man by the name of Mickey Rudin. And Rudin's a Jewish name. He says, are you, Rabbi Hier, did you put that into the B'nai B'rith Messenger? I said, yeah. He said, are you going to be in your office for 2 hours? First I didn't have an office, I had a long extension cord. And he says, yeah. I said, why are you asking? He says, because you're going to get a call from Frank Sinatra.
Oh boy.
I said, Frank Sinatra? Couldn't believe it. Frank Sinatra. I said, where's he going to call me? He says, and then I thought to myself, Rudin's a Jewish name. He must have told him that he saw the article in the B'nai B'rith Messenger. So I thank him. He says, what are you thanking me for? He says, I told him, Frank, you're out of your mind. Why do you want to, you don't know if these guys are going to succeed. why would you give your name or
To
your
this little
association?
startup.
So I said, so Mr. Rudin, so why is he calling me? He said, he's calling me because he doesn't listen to his lawyer. He makes his own decisions.
Rudin was his lawyer.
And Frank Sinatra called me, invited me to his house. And to make a long story short, he called Jews to solicit them.
And he kind of got it off the
And
ground.
he got it off to help get it off the ground.
Wow.
And thus was born. And why did he do it? He said, I have the greatest respect for Simon
The son was
Wiesenthal. A man trained as an architect, doesn't know anything about detectives, garnished. He didn't say garnished, but he said,
Right.
done on this, and yet he turned his whole
Right.
life around in order to bring these monsters,
Pursue justice.
in order to bring these monsters to justice.
So that's fascinating. It actually, the whole center started off altruistic, not looking for the big guy with the money whose name you're going to put on the building, but eventually, once you were altruistic, you did it for the right reasons, the money came because of
It
that.
was named, however, for some reason.
Right.
Right.
Amazing.
Right.
So let's fast forward to the movie
Yes.
that we're going to watch
Right.
tonight. So tell me, first of all, a little bit about how it came about. I'm also, personally, I'm very curious because I know that the date on the film is 2005. That's also the same year that Simon Wiesenthal passed away. Now, I'm no movie maker, and the Oscars are here on the wall. But I'm curious if he saw the movie. Was he involved in the movie? Tell us a little bit about how it came to be.
He came with us there at Israel. We filmed him at the Kotel.
But one second, the backup.
He was involved in the film that we told him his father, Simon, film is not your area. What we need from you is the stories, and we'll make the film.
We'll already make it
Right.
look good.
Because he came from a different generation and doesn't think in
Right.
terms of that, and he accepted that.
Right.
So,
But if I may back
Yeah.
up for a moment, what the inception of the idea was
Right.
when and for what purpose? Why were we putting out this documentary?
we're putting out the documentary to tell the world that, look what happened. There was a peaceful world, but we didn't pay attention to a lunatic called Adolf Hitler. And by the time we paid attention, he took 1/3 of the Jewish people. So we have that's where it says, I have never forgotten you. It says, never forget. We named it, he suggested the name.
Wow.
He suggested the name because he said as follows, that after the war, he came with a group of survivors, and everyone was telling him and others what they're going to do. One says they're going into business, they're going to sell fur. This one wants to go into real estate, do other things. And Simon said, I think we're going to come to the next world. He said, and they're going to ask you, after 1/3 of the Jewish people were murdered,
You moved on with your life.
what did you do? You opened this door. Says, I will have the privilege of telling the person who asked me,
I have never forgotten
forgotten you.
Wow, that's powerful.
And that's why and that's what he
So
said.
he specifically requested that the film be
That's
called.
correct.
Wow.
That's correct.
So
He also, I'll tell you a personal story. He lost 89 members of his family. His daughter, when she was 10, 11 years old, came home and asked him this question. Why are we so abnormal? She didn't use the word abnormal, so we're different from other people.
this is already post.
Everybody else has relatives.
Oh,
Why don't we
this-
have any relatives? He didn't want to tell her the whole story. So he said he committed a little avera. And he told the person that he knew, do me a favor. I want you to tell your child that knows my daughter
Mhm.
that we're cousins. And she came to the house and said, we're cousins. They were not cousins at all. Didn't want his daughter
To grow up without
to say
relatives.
you have no family until
Right.
she understands the consequences
Right.
of what a
She was
Holocaust
3 years old.
Right.
Fascinating. So pick up where you were before. You said he came with you to Israel as part of the film.
Right.
We'll see that in a moment.
Right.
Yeah.
And he went with us, explained what happened. He went to the Kotel. That's where we did the filming of him.
That wasn't his first time there.
No, it wasn't his first time there, but he did tell me at the Kotel, Simon Wiesenthal, truth be told, he didn't daven the shul. He lost 89 members of his family. And with that, he lost his emunah.
A lot of his family.
However, he was a big baldacheretz. And let's say if he came in
was a
contact
mesh.
with people, he put on a yarmulke. In 1946, he met the Wiesenthal Rebbe in Europe. He comes from that were Wiesenthal.
Right.
And the Wiesenthal Rebbe knew of his name, that he had become a Nazi.
Right.
So when he approached the Wiesenthal Rebbe, he had, out of respect, he put his hand.
He didn't have a yarmulke
He didn't
on
have a
him.
yarmulke. Put his hand on his head. And the Wiesenthal Rebbe told him like this: Shimon, soll sein eier meisten Teufel werden sein eier Zudek. Let your good deeds be your skull cap.
Right. Wow.
That's what the Wiesenthal Rebbe told him.
Anyway, so you said he came to Israel.
Came to Israel
At the Kotel.
at the Kotel and basically said the following, that he's very proud that the Simon Wiesenthal Center is connected with a yeshiva, next to a yeshiva. Because without a generation of young people that go back to Torah,
Right.
we lose our roots, we lose who we are.
So you're saying even though
And
he
the
didn't
interesting
have a
thing
munah,
is that his children, his daughter, and son-in-law, they daven in a shul.
really,
They're religious, and the future generations are protected.
so even though he personally, you're saying, didn't observe,
Yeah, he was brilliant.
This was his vision for the future.
89 members of family.
No,
Family.
I certainly am not one to blame him.
You know,
But it's interesting to see, because I've seen many that even that they don't believe.
Right.
But he had his vision for the future was he believed that Torah was the future. Torah was the way of
absolutely.
the
He was
future.
a big Zionist.
Wow.
Believed in Israel, and that's why he wanted to be buried in Israel.
Right. Wow.
You know, it's like the story of Herzl. Herzl was not religious, but Herzl left said, when the state of Israel is created, I want my body to be taken to Eretz Yisrael. So Simon Wiesenthal didn't want to be buried in Vienna. He's buried in Herzliya. And the opening of the cemetery, it's the first matzeva when you go in.
And the Russian talk very, very highly about Chias and Isim, specifically in Eretz Yisrael. All right, let's move along.
Yeah.
So, just because we still have a whole film to watch, so we want to keep it brief. So give us some insights into the film itself. Is of course a moving film, as we'll see in a moment. But what, in your view, what is the most powerful message that there is in the film?
The most powerful message is the man himself. Just look at it. No experience. He's a person well on in adulthood. He knows, he said, I knew, this he talked about, Rabbi Hier, I knew about Nazi hunting like you would say that you know something about how to make dresses. He told me. I had to change my whole career from an architect.
Yeah, he was an architect.
He says, I was a big Amoritz. I was totally ignorant in intelligence. And I said, but I'm either going to do it, and if I'm going to do it, I have to think about it 24/7. His office. When you walked into his office, he sat at a desk, and the only thing he ever permitted himself to look upon, which was the desk on the other side as he looked, the only thing he could see was a large map of every single labor camp, concentration camp, and extermination camp.
And he wanted that, in other words, not just as a vision,
Always
but a physical vision.
Always physical reminder.
In other words, the desk is
No,
there,
if you're
directly
playing
across.
chess for checkers for a minute or chess, you have a duty, fulfill what
Wow.
you said you're going to do. That this one will say they went to
He really
work,
lived it. So it wasn't just a job. It was
lived
like
it 24/7, and he lived it with Mesiras Nefesh, in the sense the Austrians provided him no protection. Only after the bombing of his home, when his living room and kitchen were totally demolished by a bomb, did the Austrian government, after he had been a Nazi hunter for about 15 years, did the Austrian government provide him with 24/7 protection.
Wow. In other words, only once.
Right, and I'll tell you one other story that will fit the film, because he loved in the film. This story he repeated all the time. When I first met him, he told me to meet him in the Intercontinental Hotel in Vienna. Now, the Intercontinental Hotel in Vienna, sit down there, he told me, so I had a drink, whatever, and he sat down. And I noticed, I thought to myself, maybe he has a hearing problem. He's screaming. When he's talking to me, everybody could hear what he's saying. And I never heard a thing like that.
Uncomfortable.
Yes.
In the middle of a lot.
So he noticed that I was uncomfortable. So he says, Rabbi Hier, I see that you are uncomfortable because I'm speaking loud. So let me tell you a story. I was in 6 camps. When I was in these camps, I couldn't even whisper. I was so afraid in the concentration camps. Take a look who's sitting here with us in the Intercontinental Hotel. See how many people are over 65 and 70. What do you think they were doing and their families during the
Exactly what
Holocaust?
they're doing now, having drinks.
So I want them to know the world has changed. It's not the Nazis who are barking anymore. Now it's the Eden that are talking loud. And if they don't like what I'm saying, I might go over to them and say to them, what's your name and what were you doing 30, 40 years ago? That's why he says you'll see that they're shrugging. They won't say one word to the fact that I want to tell them the world has changed now.
Wow, it's a powerful message. Obviously, his life doesn't fit into the brief amount of time that you're limited to, and you have to put it in a film. But if you had to take one moment and say, this moment is this is the life of Simon Wiesenthal, all led up to this moment. I mean, maybe it's Adolf Eichmann, or which moment would you say this moment in Simon Wiesenthal's life is a powerful moment that people can learn from, that people can see?
Well, he told me that the Eichmann trial, his contribution to the Eichmann trial was that he supplied the photograph by which the Mossad and German police
That they used to...
How did he provide the photograph? The brothers looked alike. And when Eichmann's brother had died, Wiesenthal sent somebody to take a photograph of the funeral.
Really?
And therefore they got all the brothers. So there were one brother died and the others were there. So even
Eichmann
though
was a twin?
Eichmann looked exactly like the other brother that went to the funeral.
Not the one that died, the
That's
one that was
correct.
alive, right.
So the Germans had that photograph, they sent it to the Mossad. That's what they use.
That only comes from living it, by the way.
In the film,
Sending
you
someone to the
see
funeral.
anyone watching the capture of Eichmann sees here they are, and they're looking at a film. They're looking at a picture before they go out of the car. That picture was supplied by Simon Wiesenthal.
Wow.
That's why he was invited to the Eichmann
You would
trial.
say that's the...
No, the biggest accomplishment, he said, was what he did with Anne Frank. He found the person. They said the Anne Frank, the neo-Nazis after the war of 46, they said Anne Frank is a complete lie. She never lived and the Jews made it up. And so Adolf Frank, Anne Frank's father, went to Simon Wiesenthal, said, Mr. Wiesenthal, can you find the person? Then they will not be able to say that my daughter that never existed. So he dropped everything. And he found the person, a detective, who worked for the Dutch police, who arrested Anne Frank.
Wow.
Brought him to justice, and therefore the neo-Nazis could not say that it was all made up by the Jews.
Till today, one of the first ways that many young people are introduced to the Holocaust is
Anne
through the diary of Anne Frank.
So on his desk, by the way, it was very sloppy. His desk,
His office didn't look as immaculate as this one.
His office was, you couldn't find anything. And on his office, he said he kept his candy, his pipe, and the letter, and a thing from the Western media that Anne Frank, that the person who arrested Anne Frank was found by Mr. Simon Wiesenthal. Kept that on his desk.
Was he most proud of that, would you say?
He was most proud.
It wasn't just on his desk.
He was most proud because he said, because why? Because these were the neo-Nazis.
This was the
They
future.
wanted to be the Fourth Reich. And they were saying that Anne Frank is a lie. and that he prevented that by saying he's alive. Look what the detective who arrested him said.
This was his life. He dedicated his life not just to remembering the future, or even doing justice on the future.
That's correct.
But to making sure that on the past, I apologize, but making sure that the future.
That's correct.
That this doesn't happen again, and that's why the film is titled. I've never forgotten it.
He was a man of action. He brought to justice more than 1,100 Nazi war criminals. A man who didn't know a thing about research and detective work.
Fascinating. All right. Well, we're in for a treat. From the producer himself, any last words you want to share with us about something interesting about the film that we should look out for in the film? Anything?
No, just to say that, look, it's very important to not only the work that the Simon Wiesenthal Center does, but that Chabad does all over the world.
Thank you.
Without, I'll tell you, Chabad takes courage to set up a Chabad anywhere in the world, whether you want something to eat or you want some help. Or someone got hurt.
We're up here tefillin to put on.
We all have telephones, and if you want to get in touch with the operator, you dial 0. If you're in the Jewish world and you want to get in touch with someone and you need some help, you just have to dial Chabad.
Thank you very much for joining us, and enjoy the film.